Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a phenomenal woman of God. She is very passionate about encouraging and uplifting and empowering women in particular. She has a big heart and just one of the nicest people you could ever want to meet. I've known this woman for a number of years now, and this was not a difficult decision at all to extend the invitation to her to be a part of the podcast, to share her journey, to share her story. And she's been gracious enough to take time out of her busy schedule to do just that. So without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, allow me the pleasure, the honor, the privilege to introduce to you Miss Nina Reed. Nina, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for allowing me
Absolutely.
to be a part of this. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we actually get into the primary components of our podcast for today, I do want to, of course, extend the opportunity to you to share with the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're from, just whatever it is that you'd like to share. Kind of give them a taste of who is Nina Reed.
Okay, good question. You know what? One thing I'll say, I can give you generals in terms I live, I do, but Nina Reed is evolving from from I would say outside of adolescence, even outside of my 30s, I felt like I started evolving after age 40. And so Nina Reed is a person that, first of all, loves the Lord with all her heart, has a desire to serve Him in any capacity, uh, a person that is not limited to even general church settings, because sometimes being a child of God, we can get too religious that we don't reach those that really need us. And so I try to just be a person of openness, not necessarily one that is like too far to the left, too far to the right, but in the medium, because the main goal for Nina's life is to share Christ uh, and fit. I think about Jesus and how he came to the sinner man that and he didn't come to them in a religious way. He met them at their point of need, and so that's how Nina strives to live, just like that. So my particulars, if you will, I'm age 66. I'm still working. And glad to work. The position that I hold is one I'm helping other people navigate through their issues with what I do. I'm not going into particulars because that's not important, but I'm still working. I am enjoying working. In fact, this is really probably my best years in terms of working because I just really like what I do. I'm helping people. The other thing is I have one daughter, Mary. She's out of state. That's been a challenge for me for a few years now, but it's okay. I'm good. Thank God for FaceTime
Yes.
because she's quite a distance. She's actually now in California. Her and her husband, 4 children. Um, one of my grandchildren actually just moved back here in Indianapolis. She's now in college, so that's a blessing to me, to her. So that's another part of Nina. I have a ministry that's devoted to women age 50 and older. It's called Wise Women Slay, and we really are here to encourage women to be all you can be as you age. A lot of times they don't, we just like, oh, I don't want to, they don't want to pass that point where, if you're going to keep living, you're going to get older and you can't be afraid to age. So, just like you, I got this gray hair, not afraid of that. It's
That's right.
there and it's not going anywhere. It's going to pop out when you try to color it. It's going to say, "No, I'm in charge." So those are a few things about me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing that, Nina. And already, just in your introduction, you've already dropped some nuggets when you first stated about how about the concept of church, and that we oftentimes, put church in a box, that it's within the four walls of this glorious building that we go to traditionally on Sunday mornings, and worship and hear a good word and all of that good stuff. And nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It's just that oftentimes, though, the real church, or the where the need, I should say, is the greatest, oftentimes is beyond those four walls. And we hear it. I know that for those of us who are regular churchgoers, we've heard that terminology quite a bit. Going outside of those four walls. But there's true value and meaning into that, and that's what, even doing this podcast. That's what is, to a certain degree, is special about this opportunity, because it gives me an opportunity to share Christ with other people, to share the impact of what a relationship with Christ looks like, and in conjunction with the different challenges and journeys and battles and whatnot that we go through in life. Just making that connection to people, and again, it's all about meeting people where they are. Everybody. The reality is that everybody is not in a physical church. They're not connected to a specific church home. That doesn't mean that they still don't need that godly influence. They don't still need that connection. And so when you have opportunities such as this, whether it's me as a host or you as a guest coming on to be able to share that with other people, and not do it in a quote unquote churchy way, but just, hey, as people are going to see, if this is their first time tuning in, you're going to see really quickly that we're just here, two regular folks having a conversation about some very everyday relatable stuff
Mhm.
that a lot of people deal with and a lot of people go through, just reminding you that this is a journey that you're not in alone, that you don't have to travel alone, and you're not the only one that's going through. My thing may not be your thing, and vice versa, but we all have a storm. We all have something that we're dealing with, and we need as many resources as possible around us to be able to connect and have people to support and lift us up in prayer, and be of encouragement to us to help us navigate through those challenging times in life. So, like I said, just right out the gate, you're already dropping some nugget, and then I'm gonna just throw in the fact, for my audience, you heard Nina say she's 66 years old. So when you hear the other common terminology, when we tell you that black don't crack, this is what we're talking about right here. Because Miss Nina do not look 66 years old. Okay, so
Hallelujah.
she's aging gracefully. Let's just
That's
let's
my
just
motto. Yes, sir.
so
Yes,
she's doing her thing. So, and that's God all over her. So again, and as she stated to you, just in pouring into other women, not making women feel ashamed or fearful of entering into those later years, those 50 plus, those 60 plus years. No, you should actually celebrate it. The mere fact that you're here to be able to be a voice, to be able to still have movement of limbs and capacities in place, that in itself is a blessing. And yeah, you should be celebrating it and taking advantage of it to pour into other people. That's a good thing.
sir.
Nobody wants to know that, oh, I once knew a person and they made it in their 20s, but they didn't get quite. No, let's celebrate, especially in these days and times with the world
Yeah.
being as crazy as it is. It's a good thing to know that, that you've entered into that next season, that next phase, because that's what it is. It's a next season, the next phase of life. It shouldn't be looked at as, oh, this dreaded moment that I'm entering into. No, this is a great time to be in,
Yes,
where you
sir.
can actually have great impact on a troubled world. So thank you so much for that introduction, Nina.
Mhm.
I do want to, of course, build upon that, and I want to do so by kind of taking you back to the beginnings, because I believe whenever we talk about our journeys of life, you can't really capture the full essence of that journey unless you go back to where it all begins, and that's where I want to go that route with you. So if you would take us back, kind of reflect back to what your upbringing was like, if you would, and share that with us. What was it like for Nina growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, and if there were any specific challenges that were a part of that growing up experience that you care to share, please feel free to share that as well. Just kind of give us some context of where did this journey begin for you.
Okay. Yeah, certainly. I actually had I would say a good upbringing. My family on both sides, mom and dad's side, were church goers, and had a desire to serve the Lord. Of course, as you as you get more mature in the Lord, some things change. You drop off some things, add some things, but always been a part of a Christian home. So, and I'm grateful for those roots. But does that mean you don't have challenges even within a Christian home? No, it does not. And I just, as you're saying, going back, I thought about a few things, and I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be frank, um, because I think it's important, especially for children of God. And one of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure you have too, uh, that religious mindset will make you think we're holier than thou when we're just like everybody else. But something which I believe, because of the prayers of my forefathers, brought me into a place where I could have went through some more difficult times, but I wasn't shielded. And I think one of the things that we all have to realize is, if we didn't have a story, why would Jesus have to come to save us?
Mm.
I mean, I mean, it's almost like, and I'll use this phrase because I'm kind of like that, Jehovah sneaky, because, you think, when you look back, you think, well, why, I had this, came from this great home, not without challenges, but, pretty good. But why did I go through this? Because we got to have a story so we can share with other people. And I'm not saying God has to have a story, but we're sinners. We got, Jesus had to come to save us so we can live the life he called us to do. That's, I mean, from the beginning. So going back into my childhood, again, coming from a Christian home, and I think about some introductions to things that happened in my youngest, when I can remember back, I'd say probably in my early, probably 7, 8, no, not that late, young, but probably when I started developing as a woman, my puberty years. um, I was, um, not necessarily, I was not molested. However, I was introduced to pornography through my dad. Now, here's how that played out. Back in the day, I don't even, I guess it's still out there. Uh, Playboy magazine
Mm-hmm.
was something that was, and I don't think my father, I don't know how that, I never knew about why he did that, but I seen those Playboy magazines, and I opened them up, and it opened me up to something. And then, as I know, because I am a child of God, looking back on it, then I got introduced through a cousin. You show me this, I show you that,
Mm-hmm.
parts of the body. No touch, but just the opening up of that sexual encounter distorted my view very early on. Okay. And so it didn't really manifest itself until I got into my high school years, and then unfortunately I got involved with somebody, had sex out of marriage, and that started that whole, um, more of an opening up into the sexual realm and things like that. And it was a challenge, and then it was just, it's amazing how the enemy will come in very subtly, and you don't even think about it at the time you're going through it. But when you look back, you see how there was always a plot of the enemy, uh, through my dad, not knowingly. My dad, I'm a daddy's girl,
Mm-hmm.
so there was never anything, but it was just through that little opening. And I tell people even now, be careful what you expose your children to, because a small little thing could open up a whirlwind that you're still navigating through even at 60 years old. I've passed that place, but I'm just saying, if you don't get those issues resolved, it can plague you for years. And that's one of the things being a part of this ministry, Wise Women Slay, we talk about. So I would say that, and then just the normal challenges with being bypassing that, moving forward on like into my high school years. Really didn't have just an average high school, but I did get it. I did have my first sexual encounter when I was in high school. Then I was opened up to that, and then that caused, one a little bit at a time, these floodgates of sexual immorality, and didn't know this was going on to the degree and how it was going to affect me. But those are the starting points. But I mean, outside of that, did all the wild things with smoking marijuana, got involved in all that. But I'm gonna say this to you, and I almost think it was God touching me, preparing me, or covering me. When I had several friends that I was, like I said, I was doing marijuana in my teens and stuff like that, cocaine, all of those things. But you know what? None of that, I would smoke it, snort it. It didn't touch me. Like I had other friends and they got strung out. And I knew not to, why did I not get hooked?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it was God's grace on my life and where He was taking me, that wasn't going to happen. And so sometimes when we think about you know if you see somebody going in this direction, it could take you off this path, and some people it does, but for me it didn't. So I was grateful for that looking back. um Other things, I'm just thinking about, trying to go forward here, like in my uh I had gotten married early, didn't know what marriage was about. Just I want to get married. First guy I kind of sort of like, married him. It was a disaster. And we only stayed together a couple of years. But I'll say this because I see my life as God, God had a plan for me. And I don't know what if anybody else has experienced this, but I'll just have to share Nina. I was married to this gentleman. One night we were in bed. As I said, I got involved with drugs and stuff like that. And so I just happened to turn and looked at him, and I saw this evil face come out of him, like growling at me.
Hmm.
And at the time, I didn't know. I was like, wait, what am I? What's going on here? I can't, and I looked at him again and I saw this evil face again, not knowing at the time, but it was a demonic spirit coming out. He visually, I saw it and it was growling at me. Didn't think anything about. I mean, I was just like, I must be too high. Went on and just kept going, and then eventually he and I divorced. He actually tried to kill me.
Mm.
God saved me out of that. And he choked me. And something I said, I had a big mouth. Excuse me. He didn't like it. Tried to choke me. The next day, I got out of there.
Hmm.
Very next day, I'm leaving this place. But again, just kind of looking back on how God always protected me. And so those were my early beginnings, I would say, up until, because I left him like in my early 20s. Then eventually I got involved with my daughter's father, whom we never got married. But that's where, and I don't know how far you want me to go with this part. Yeah, okay, that's probably
Okay.
in the next
Okay.
segment. So I'll stop
You're
there.
good. You're good. You're good. Yeah, you're good. I appreciate your transparency and what you've shared up to this point. I mean, um, I think you just as you started off, just kind of setting that tone of, yeah, it's a wonderful thing to grow up in a Christian based home, but that doesn't mean that even in a Christian based home there aren't challenges. And there are some of us, unfortunately, that when we grow up in these Christian based homes, we can kind of give off that air like as if we've somehow arrived at a point where we don't do any wrong, or we are free of sin, or free of any of those things. And while that might be our pursuit to be that way, um, Christians do sin too. Christians do go through stuff too. And it's not that we are trying to be hypocritical or anything of that nature. It's just that it's just a part of that journey. And truth be told, and I've said this a number of times, when you give your life to Christ, a lot of times people view that as, I've reached this finish line, when in fact you just getting started. And if you thought that there was some battles that were going on prior to making that decision, it's about to get ramped up even more just because of the decision you just made. So it becomes even testier. But the benefits of the relationship, of course, far exceed anything that you may go through. But just understand that you will still go through some stuff. And as you stated, just little things like when you spoke about encountering the Playboy magazines, and or getting caught up in the whole, I show you, you show me, because there's some kids that type of scenario has actually happened, that
Yeah.
there was no personal touching or anything like that. It could even be kids of the same age,
Hmm.
it just the curiosity of sharing like that. And but not understanding what that's opening up for you if you're too young to understand it, not mature enough to process that. So, you mentioning about being a daddy's girl, and I immediately, connected to, my relationship with my daughter, because she's certainly a daddy's girl. And that's one of the things as a father, of a daughter, that you constantly, that you constantly worry about. Like,
Hmm.
I'm always, I'm always mindful. I try to be mindful of how I behave and conduct myself, and particularly in her presence. But then when I do have my shortfalls and mess ups and slip ups, I'm always wondering, I hope I didn't, either offend, or I'm hoping that I didn't open up something that she didn't need to see, that because it could be something that later on in life she, miscalculates or misinterprets as being okay and acceptable from some other man. And I
Right.
don't want that to be the situation. So, saying all that to say, for any dads that are listening to this, fathers of a daughter, do be mindful of those things, even if it's a struggle that you're dealing with right now. Let's just say in the realm of pornography or something else that is not a healthy practice. While you're trying to work that thing out and praying on it and asking God to deliver you from it, I'm not saying try to do it in sneaking around or anything like that, but definitely be mindful of that.
Hmm.
As you're making that decision, be mindful of that at any given point in time, whether it's something you left open or around, or if you thought you were alone and you get walked in on by that daughter who is that daddy's girl, who you are their first idea of what a man should be like for them. If they see something outside of what is godly in nature, it can set the stage, even if it's just happened one time or something like that. You just never know the impact of that. So you just have to be careful about that. I guess that's the bottom line. Be mindful, be
Hmm.
careful about that, and think about that even as you're, you know, thinking about partaking in something that I ain't got no business doing this.
Right.
let
Right.
let her face perhaps, be the face that pops in your head, or that spouse that pops in your head, and of course most importantly, God pops in your head and says, okay, is this of God, what I'm about to do, even if it's pleasing to me from a flesh standpoint?
Right.
Should I be doing this? And if I do slip up and do it, I need to be talking to God right away, see how I can fix this, because this can't be a regular thing for me. Otherwise, it's not only good for me, but then it could have, negative residual effects on, the women in my life, daughter or wife. So I appreciate you sharing that, and just, again, just your transparency and just talking about what that early phase of life was like for you. So with that said, I do want to, move a little bit further into your journey. You've, as you said earlier, you got some time on the clock. You've experienced some things. You've seen, some highs, some lows, and a little bit in between. And one of the things that I'm sure you realized over this period of time is that there are going to come up moments in your life where you're faced with a situation that hits a little different. Situations that, even if you're normally really good at working your way through adverse and challenging moments, every now and then we get hit with something that kind of knocks us off our feet. It knocks us off our feet to the point to where we actually begin to doubt, can I get through this? Am I going to be able to overcome this? Because this is a little bit much. The weight of this is way heavier than what I'm accustomed to. And at this moment in time, I'm not seeing a way out of that. Tell us about a time when you found yourself in that type of situation where you weren't sure how to navigate your way through it. Of course, you're here today, so we know you survived it, whatever it is. But nevertheless, at that time, you weren't sure. There were some question marks about that. Please walk us through that scenario, what that was like for you, and what ultimately did it take for you to have that breakthrough moment to begin to overcome that adversity, that challenge in your life at that particular point in time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, to be continued would be, as I said before, being introduced to pornography through a Playboy book. That was the intro to this more difficult phase because, I had sex out of wedlock. Really didn't have a concept of what that really meant. And I think one of the things I'm grateful now, this in this age that we live in, uh, there's some good and bad at that. But back when, and I'm sure you as well, it was like don't ask, don't tell. My
Mm-hmm.
parents never talked to us about the ramifications of sexual immorality. They just said, just don't do it. They didn't go
Right.
into all the dynamics of that, and I'm quite sure they didn't understand that. I've learned a lot, way more since then, even within the last 10 years or so. But just that next phase after I got out of high school, began college, I met my daughter's father, and that's when I was really introduced to being connected, having a sexual soul tie with him, because I wasn't married to him, so there was no covenant, there was no bond. But the whole thing with that, what can happen with that is, you're drawn to a person, and so the Bible just holds true when you have sex outside of a covenant of marriage, a godly covenant of marriage, it can introduce things into your life that are hard to break because, I knew later on that just the having sex with somebody, it binds you. Women are more emotional than men. Men can hop in and out, and I'm not saying all men, but generally they can hop in and without any emotional ties than women. We are so emotional. And so when I got involved with my daughter's father, I just thought, oh, I love him, he's just but it was the sexual connection that
Mm-hmm.
was, and I have to say it was great. I did not want to give it up. And I didn't give it up for a long time. And I realized I didn't, because I really thought that I was in love with him. I really, truly thought I was in love with him, not understanding what love really means. Now, of course, I'm in this church background, Christian, because this was going on. I had given my life to Christ and all that, but I could not break free because was already bound to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was off doing other things, and whatever he was, big and bad to do, we would connect because he didn't live here in the city. He lived in a different city. So I just kind of just adjusted my life to his lifestyle. Whenever he came in town, we had a great time. Then he would leave. I mean, so it was back and forth. So it was never a really good relationship in terms of stability. Always. And I just was okay with that because, I had to rationalize that I was still doing this for years. My daughter was born. I mean, initially it was just he and I, and then later on she was born. And then that's when the Lord just started dealing with me about it's time to stop.
Mm-hmm.
You're too old to be still doing the same things that you're doing. The tie was not broken, but I gave my life more fully to the Lord. It didn't stop there because there was several times he would come in and out of my life, and I was still thinking that I loved him because of that sexual tie that is meant, in a good way in the right setting. That's what binds husbands and wives together. That's a very important piece. So there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But when it's outside of God's realm, out of His perfect design, it's detrimental to your life, you know. And so I went through that, and and I'm not even embarrassed to say, because I think it'll help other women, men, that so I'm 66 now. I would say probably I finally got free in um, in my early 50s. So, and it wasn't, even though I didn't, as there was a point in time, because like I said, I really focused in on the Lord. So I didn't see him for like maybe 10, 15, 20 years. No
Mm-hmm.
problem. Didn't have any other, I wasn't even connected with any other guys. I didn't even care about any other guys. But when he came around, whew, it was just like, I just like, oh, that's the way it
Mm-mm.
was. And so I don't know if I should say this. I'm gonna, but I gotta say it. Okay, so as I said, um, it ended because we continued to have sex on occasion, but it ended when, as older individuals, you don't have the same stamina.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't as you're not able to do what you used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Things start fading, and you're not able to operate. Try to be very
Gotcha. I understand.
the same way you would normally. And then when I realized, wait a minute, you can't do what you used to do. And that's when it broke, when I realized it was all about sex. I realized, and then I had to look back over my life and saw that I excused so many of the flags that were always there.
Mm-hmm.
They were always there, but because that sex tie was so strong, it kept me in a place of bondage, and I was living really an alternate lifestyle, an alternate in a whole different realm, until that point in time when I realized that this was not love, it was sex that kept me bound for all those years. And then the sad part about it, then this person began to blame me for their insufficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you must be crazy. You must be. And
Mm-mm.
so yeah, that was a very difficult time. And so I'm bringing that because there may be some women that are going through that in their latter years, thinking that they really love this man, and you make all these excuses, and really it was a tie that was holding you bound, and there were red flags. I mean, he showed me plenty of red flags. When that experience happened, I realized that, wait a minute here, there was nothing there to begin with. Now we have a child together, we have beautiful grandchildren, we're fine now. you know our relationship is great. He's in God now. He was also he was a PK kid, but so it was like, we're great now. But Nina didn't realize the lasting long-term effects of just that encounter outside of marriage, how it held me bound. And and I've had, like, Lord, did I miss opportunities? Maybe I could have had a husband. But you know what, God is so gracious, God is so good. I'm not, sure, would I like to have a companion? Sure, I would. However, there was a purpose and a reason that it didn't happen when I thought it was going to happen, and I'm good with that, because he knows my end from my beginning. And now it's just, now at this point, and unless he says something different, I love my life. I'm grateful for where he has me now. But that was a very difficult time, very long lasting time. And in Nina's case, it ended when things didn't work so well between the two of us. And so, yeah, that was difficult, but praise God, I made it through.
Wow, wow. Again, let me first start off with saying appreciate your transparency and sharing that. And again, this is a very real type of subject, whether you're the woman in the relationship or the man in the relationship, and just and it's real even for believers because there are many of us who've given our lives to Christ, and like you stated, we don't automatically overnight shake off all of the bad habits, and that's probably the sex is probably one of the more challenging ones to break if that was one of the things that you were bound by prior to giving your life to Christ. Even if you come into the situation saying, okay, I'm not going to do anything anymore until I get married, and it may work for a little while, and then, like you said, it depend upon how strong that bind is with you and that other person, or just with the experience of sex in itself.
Mhm.
You kind of hold for a while, and then you're in this struggle, and all it takes is just one opportunity, one moment, and boom, you're right back to doing
Yeah.
that which that you already know that is outside of God's will, but nevertheless you're bound by this thing, that we refer to as sex. So with your story, with you bringing this up, I'm curious to, or I should say, I'll ask for you to say, what would your advice be to that woman, that man, who, even if they are a woman or man who's given their lives to Christ, but this is still yet a struggle, that they find themselves in, being, bound to. What would be, because you said, hey, I had red flags. I not only did I know it in God's word, but I had red flags that were saying this is not what you calling it. This is not love. This is a lustful situation, and you're just enjoying the physical of it, but it really is nothing more to it. What would you say to that man or to that woman in particular that you believe would be, something that they need to hear to sort of break out of
Yeah.
that, or at least begin the process of trying to break free from that, so that they don't end up, spending, you know, years and years and
Years.
years of going through that, whether it's with one person or with multiple people, hanging
Mhm.
on to that, calling it something that it's not,
Right.
versus calling it what it really is.
Yeah.
What would you say to that would perhaps be of encouragement to help somebody that wants to, they want to get out, but they just don't know how to get rid of that urge, that hunger, if you will, for
Mhm.
to satisfying that sexual appetite.
Hmm. Yeah, and I've actually talked to, especially younger women. I mean, it could be anybody, but I've got some younger friends that have and are going through that, and I really just call it out. I mean, things like that you have to be pretty blunt with. So if you're struggling in that area and you already know he's not helping me with anything, he's just, because I'll just say one of the other things that was a red flag, you know um now with him, because he lived out of town, he might come in town and stay the weekend or a few days. But if you're dealing with that, and you're right in the same city, or even if you are living together, and you know that that's the only thing that's really binding you, let's just say, just be honest with yourself. There's a point of honesty you must make. If you just say, I really like that part of our relationship, but the rest of it is jacked up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
That, yeah, it's not right, because being bound to somebody sexually does take some time. And I'll just, my situation was that, but maybe with somebody else's situation, God will break them free, just because you cry out to him. Because I didn't cry out to God for that,
Mm-hmm.
because I really thought I was in love with him. I really thought I was. So if you are struggling with that, and you already see the red flags, because I saw them and I just kind of negated it. But if somebody would hear me today, please don't ignore red flags. If they're not, you're in a relationship and it's a one-sided relationship, you're always giving, you're not receiving, it's not uh, a reciprocal, but you're giving, in ways in the sex part, and but you don't see any other things that they're helping you with, or they're being loving to you, that's a red flag. It's a red flag. You have to call it out. And I've told my young girls, now it's just like, he doesn't love you, honey. He does not love you. And so all I can say is watch for the red flags and don't ignore them.
Hmm.
Do not ignore them. Really evaluate that. If you're really struggling, why is he not there? Maybe if I just know he's not. And I'm not, since I'm a woman, I can't speak from a man's perspective and what they think about and those things. I can speak from a woman's perspective. Let's just call a a cat as a cat. I mean, he's not going to change his. A leopard doesn't change the
Hmm.
stripes. It's not changing. If you've been dealing with the same situation for years, and it doesn't change, it's not going to change.
You're
Period.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And again, I appreciate you saying, hey, I can only speak from the woman's side of it, but I'll speak from the man's side of it because I've been in that situation before. Um, even to our men, because what men sometimes will do. I mean, I know your situation was, he's in maybe for a few days or what have you, but then there are some of us, and I've been guilty of this. There are some of us who will actually create the environment of support and being there. So we will sign leases. We will live with you. We'll take on the whole provider role. The whole setting will look
Okay.
very married like, but the official covenant is not there. So you're in essence are doing what we used to say back in the day, playing house or shacking up, you
Right.
know, and you it's sort of it's the enemy's way of mind tricking you into thinking that if you got all of this in place, if I'm treating you wife like, and if there's kids involved, if I'm playing father to those kids, if I'm paying bills and I'm doing this or that, then that kind of justifies
Mhm.
what you're doing. And in reality, if you're doing all of that as a man for a woman, but yet there's nothing in your spirit that's saying, let me propose and make this woman my wife,
Mhm.
chances are that again, that's that red flag moment that it's not what you are trying to make it appear to be visually.
Yeah.
The love is really not there. You may be in love with the idea, the concept. You've created this setting to ease your own conscience, but in reality, it's just not a good connection. And it doesn't mean that the person is a bad person. It just
Exactly.
means you all may get along well. You may have fun with each other, but it just may not be at the level to where long term commitment wise in the guise of marriage that we just aren't a good fit for that. We just are
Right.
two people who just happen to have fun and get along with each other and we can
Mhm.
cohabitate and be okay. But in the big scheme of things, and of course, more importantly, in God's scheme of it all, that's not what that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we have to be on, like you said, you have to be, when you have those conversations, whether it's man to man, woman to woman, the best way is to call it what it is. To just be
Call it what
blunt
it
about it. Okay, let's stop playing. This is what you're doing. This is what it is.
is.
Do you
Mhm.
really love this person? And if you really love this person as would be identified as biblically,
Yeah.
in alignment, then there should be no hesitation with you trying to make this be in alignment with how God would want it to be. And if you're not prepared to do that, if you got this, well, we just need some time. Ain't no rush. Or some men who play the game, it's just a piece of paper. All of that. Let's be
Yeah.
real. That's
Let's be
not that's not what it is. You just don't,
right.
for whatever it is. There's something that's not making you want to officially commit. Own that, be straight up with it, and
Yeah.
instead of tarnishing feelings and ruining relationships and friendships, let's just be real with it. Let's go our separate ways and not venture back to that path until we are ready to
Mhm.
do that with whoever it is that God has appointed for that significant, that spouse to be for us, and doing it the right way. So
Mhm. Mhm.
very,
Yes.
very relatable, everyday type stuff Christians and non-Christians deal with,
Yeah. That's
and
it.
struggle with.
And I know there is a difference in terms of a child of God versus one that has not made the commitment to the Lord and has not accepted Him. I know there's a difference, because I do believe that it could have been worse
Hmm.
had I not had the covering of the Lord. So I don't want anybody to get the misconception that, oh, you haven't made that commitment to the Lord. I don't need to do it because she's a Christian and mm-mm. Because I already know that had not God been on my side, it would have been worse. It would have been longer. But with me trying to, Lord, I don't like this, help me, and then I had to, after I started, that one, when that break did occur, in terms of me realizing that this was never what I thought it was, I really had to start going through this place of self-evaluation. I had to really start, I really had to do the work. I had to figure out, okay, so I've realized that this was never love. So what was lacking in me? Why did I feel like I need it? I mean, it was really some deep self evaluation. And I walked through this with the Lord. He helped me see that there were some things that were lacking in me from a child that put me in this place today,
Mm-hmm.
that it took me a minute. But just like I said, we all need a story. I mean, there's going to be a story that you can tell the next person, so you can help them, free them out of bondage. I mean, so I'm grateful that I went through that, because we're here to serve. We're here to show people the way. We're here to let people know that there's still hope, even when you're a Christian that's been saved all their life, has accepted Lord when I was probably 10. And you gradually evolve in your relationship with the Lord, but you still struggle, but you don't give up. Even if you're going through challenges, don't give up. Really ask those pertinent questions to yourself. A lot of what the way I came out of it was just really asking myself these hard questions, getting involved with other people, like-minded people. And I'll say this too, that watch the company you keep,
Mm.
because some people don't aren't at the same level. There's nothing wrong with, everybody's at different levels, but if you're trying to grow in the Lord, you better have people that are also doing where you are or even better.
Right.
So it won't take you as long. And don't be ashamed that I blew it, I messed up. I had to come to the realization of all of that. So those are some things. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. That's great stuff. And again, appreciate your transparency and all of this. This is some very powerful stuff that I know. Again, I'm already being blessed, and I know others are going to be blessed as a result of hearing this story as we're moving along. So Nina, when you do find yourself faced with challenges, adversity, whether it's something really big or even if it's something minor, um, what is your process that you like to go through that sort of helps you to deal with those adverse moments? What is your routine or your regimen, if you will, that works for you in dealing with that kind of stuff, while at the same time keeping a level head, being focused in the process?
So I would say, when I am challenged with anything, um, I really have to dig deep. Okay, so what's going on in Nina? A lot of times, because one of the things that I just learned over time, that if you've got some unresolved issues in your life, um, when people talk to you, you view things based on your unresolved issues. So, as an example, if you deal with um, rejection, if somebody says no to you, you just automatically go into rejection. Well, they don't like me. Well, they might be saying no because I just don't have time today. But then you might think of it as, you know, they don't like me, but maybe it has nothing to do with you. It's just to them. It has nothing to do with them responding to you. It's just how you interpret their no. And so that's one of the things that I have had to process any challenge. I had to really, first of all, I had to not judge the other person, not judge the situation. Why didn't I get that job? Well, Nina, maybe because you don't know how to. you're not the best qualified. Maybe I need to bone up on some skills that I don't have. you know or why didn't that person want to be around me? What's wrong with you, Nina? I mean, I had to really inwardly make some decisions, that where am I lacking? Because once you realize that, yeah, I guess I do have some issues. The Bible talks about, don't think of yourself more highly than you should. Paraphrasing there. But we all got some good in us. There's something good about all of us, but you really got to evaluate how you interpret life, period, in all phases. I had some issues with my daughter, as an example, with, I'm thinking she's rejecting me for whatever, whatever. Well, I had to stop, take a moment, and look and see, is it the rejection? Is rejection due to me or her? And I found out it really wasn't me she was rejecting. It was the way she viewed herself. So I mean, it's really an inward process that you have to go through in order to make sure you're, so when you really you interpret it first from an inward perspective, and then look at it from the outward perspective. So if you've not done anything to a person, then you shouldn't feel rejected because you haven't done anything to them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's them. And you have to, oh, okay, that's them, and move on. Or, oh, okay, that's me because I went through this. I haven't gotten resolved in that area. That's me. And be honest with yourself because, I'll say this, Joe, the older you get, who has time to still be dealing with something back there? I
Mm.
don't. I don't. And I recognize that, and I make a conscious, intentional effort that, why am I still dealing with this, that I was dealing with this when I was 20? That makes no sense to me. Why am I, why? I gotta really look internally, because if Nina's still rejecting it and I got a whole new different group of people, it ain't them, it's me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how I try to um how I try to just live my life now, being really intentional about every area of Nina's life first. And that's how I overcome, and I always tell myself, if you can't figure it out or you don't understand, just shut up, be quiet, because time will tell. Time will help you sort things out. You don't have to respond to your insufficiencies even in the moment. If you're struggling with something, just like, Lord, help me here, and just take a break. Lord, I don't know what's going on here. I don't understand. Please show me, help me. And just rest in the fact that He loves you and He wants to show you. He wants you to be whole. And when you get that realization that He's not neglecting you because you don't have the answer today, then you can relax in His love towards you. And that's been one of my biggest places of peace, is knowing He loves me
Mm-hmm.
unconditionally. Unconditionally. And I don't have to know all the answers today. I don't have to know the answers at all. It's just like, well, Lord, I'm still living. I'm still
Right.
here.
Right.
So if I never get the answer, I already know He loves me. And maybe it's not for me to know. And His love secures me and makes me whole. So yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Love that. And I think the other thing that, and I talk about this quite a bit, is and I that I've had to learn over time, uh God's no, um again, as you stated, it's not about, when you get that no, that it means something is wrong with you or you're being rejected or neglected. There are many instances when God's no is actually a form of protection,
Mhm.
for you. And I've shared this with people where I've said, I'm at the point in my life now that I celebrate the no's even more than I celebrate the yeses, because
Yes.
I know that He just saved me from something, a pitfall, a landmine that I had no way of seeing or knowing in advance, even if everything looked like it was supposed to be ideal, whether it was whether it was a particular job situation, an opportunity, a person that you had just met, or whatever. Everything seemed to be good about whatever this thing was, but or who this person was, but because God can see and can hear and be mindful of things that I, well in advance of me, he says, no, I'm not going to let you engage with that. I'm not going to let you walk into that room or into that space because there are some things that you're not aware of that will be harmful to you. So for that reason, and as you stated, that unconditional love for you, I'm going to block that. And then just take it even a step further. Sometimes it's not even a bad thing per se or a bad person per se. God will say no because of if you go to this or if you embrace this, you actually would be selling yourself short. And so
Yes.
God will sometimes tell you no just because maybe what you asked for, you asked him as if God was small G and instead of big G. He's like, you asking for this. You should be asking me for this. Don't you know who I am? So I'm gonna
Right.
say no because you went too low.
Right.
Or I'm gonna say no because while this opportunity or this experience is okay, I got something way better for you. So I'm gonna say no to this because you'll get comfortable and settle for this when if you just hold on a little bit longer, you can get two, three, four times as much as what you thought you was gonna get here. So just to keep you from settling, I'm gonna
Hmm.
say no. And
Right.
so we have to embrace that. And then like you stated also, we can't get bent out of shape in terms of expecting that even if we bring something to God's attention that we want, something we want him to move in our situation or provide us with something that just because even though we know he can make it happen instantaneously, he's not going to always do that.
Right.
And so we have to understand that he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't make incorrect moves or untimely moves. So if we give it to him, whatever that is that we put up in prayer to him, that we've asked him to work on our behalf for us, however long it takes is however long it takes, and we have to be okay with that. Whether
Hmm.
it's a day or two, whether it's a week or two, a month or two, even if it's years from now,
Years. Yeah.
because he knows if it's for you, he also knows what the exact appointed time that needs to take place. And we may think it needs to happen right now, but he's like, no, it don't need to happen right now. I'm gonna give it to you, I'm gonna make it happen, but it just don't need to happen right this moment, and you just need to trust me. If you're giving it to me, then you also need to trust how I work that thing out for you, and just
Yeah.
not keep going back to over and over again. Or I spoke with a gentleman earlier in a different interview. He talked about let's get out of this habit of thinking if we pray harder that's gonna
Right.
I'm gonna pray harder because this is a bigger thing. Or I'm gonna keep saying the same thing over and over again, like as if that's gonna make God
Change
move
my
faster.
mind.
No,
Right.
you pray about it, you give it, you turn it over, and you let that go. You let go, let God.
Mhm.
Quit trying to ask for the help from the one who can help you, and then tell the one who can help you how they supposed to help you.
Yeah.
That's kind of backwards thinking.
Yeah.
I need your help, but I'm gonna tell you how you gonna help me.
Right.
So
Right.
if I needed to do all that, then that wasn't the person I was supposed to go to begin with. If I had to tell them how they were supposed to do it, so yeah, so those are all powerful things that you mentioned. I just wanted to tag that on. So
Mhm.
so so Nina, if you had a chance to, with all your experiences, everything that you've been through, ups, downs, highs, lows, if you had a chance to talk to the younger Nina, the Nina who again grew up in a Christian home, had the foundational basis, but maybe was still trying to find her way, find her identity, trying to understand what love was all about and what life is all about. What would be your words of encouragement, words of wisdom that you would share with her that you think, had she known those things, it might have not necessarily, prevented those experiences or those things to happen? I mean, because everything that happens for a reason, but maybe would have given her a better perspective, a better mindset on how to navigate such challenging times and in moments of adversity and whatnot. What would be your words of encouragement for her?
Yeah. It's funny because I was looking at a picture of myself probably when I was about 20-ish. And I'm a woman that loves color. I love color, and so I saw this. I had this picture of me, and it wasn't this. I just little sharp. I'm kind of like a eclectic kind of girl, and I was looking at that picture and I thought, what happened to you? Because back then I was I some things, and I don't know when I changed and left Nina, and I started letting other influences dictate how I lived. So I would say to the younger Nina or to the younger woman, find out who you are before you even get involved with other people. I mean, relationships. I'll just say male female relationships, because I do believe, and even some female, same sex relationships, because, there's some people that you just really shouldn't be around, because they start changing your mindset on how you view yourself. And I'll say this as an example. It's a crazy thing, but I'll say that because years ago, this one, I grew up. My dad was. I think if he had the opportunity, he would have been an architect. He loved designing homes and things like that. And I fell right into Better Homes and Gardens. Books were all around our house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that whole creative, beautiful home things was a part of my growing up years. And so I got around some other people and I let them change how I lived, how I viewed my life, because they basically says you don't have enough African stuff in your home. You don't have African art and all that stuff. And I felt bad because I said, yeah, I'm black. Why don't I have African? But it never, but it changed me. It changed the way I viewed Nina. And so when I looked at that picture, I said, man, I let too many other people influence Nina. So I would say to anyone, get to know you. You know, spend time with developing you. And that's what I tell my granddaughter now. I tell her, she's in her 20s, about that same time in her 20s. I said, try not to let other people influence you. Try to just figure out who I am, all my quirkiness, all my fun times. Just really take that time to know who you are before you let other people influence you. And of course, we're living in the world, you're around other people, you are going to be influenced by people, but that don't let them take you off in a direction that it really, you know you can go in a direction, good or bad, that's going to take you off course, to where God didn't, he wanted you to go this way, but you went that way because of somebody else's influence. And so I would say, had I should have been more cognizant that I was of value
Mm-hmm.
by herself. I didn't need somebody else to tell me. And so I would even challenge parents to help your children discover their own worth early on, in those very formative years. Don't allow others, especially, peer pressure is great. You got to celebrate your children. You got to help them come into their own, and they're how God created them early on. So you're not off course. You don't go off course when you get to a place where you're on your own, and then this person's influencing that person's, and then you're really kind of messed up in your mind because you've forgotten who you were, because nobody likes that person, but who cares what other people think?
Right.
It's what you think. So what I would say to my younger self, had I had the chance. And what's crazy about it now, I'm doing everything that I didn't do back then now, so it worked out, praise the Lord.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that, and like you said, it is all about knowing yourself, loving yourself, valuing your opinions and your thoughts. Nothing wrong with you being open to, what people may have, to offer, or, words of advice or whatever, I can be open to that, but I don't necessarily have to allow it to define or change my path or my course, feeling pressure to do it just because somebody's insisting that my way is perhaps inadequate or something of that nature. If you don't feel like that, then you roll with what you feel. Come, thank you for sharing that, but I think I'm gonna stick with this direction.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I love that. I think those are excellent words of wisdom to any younger person who's trying to find their way, find themselves, not allowing people to define who you're going to be. Let If anybody's going to help you define who you're gonna, if you're going to allow that type of access, let God be that person
Yeah.
that helps you to figure that out. Don't let man or woman try to impart their own influence. Even as you mentioned, like even as parents, especially back in the day, while parents and grandparents meant well, a lot of times they force you into a particular career path, a
Mhm.
particular direction that just wasn't who you were. But you,
Mhm.
under the pressure, that's what they told me I was supposed to be. This, I'm supposed to be a lawyer. I'm supposed to be a doctor. Even though you have no love or desire for that field, you may have wanted to be an artist. You may have wanted to be, a teacher instead. Whatever. We can't let people live their lives through us.
Mhm.
We have to learn to live our own lives, of course, but doing it within the confines of what would be decent and in order in terms of God's will for us. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome. So, Nina, before I let you go, this has been an awesome conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I do want to take an opportunity to, to celebrate you, to love on you, to affirm you. So, if you got anything, projects coming up, any exciting things you got going on, you know, um, you know, uh, accomplishments that have recently take place, anything of the like, please do share that with us at this time. So again, we can celebrate you and love on you and lift you up, and figure out, even if we need to figure out how to get connected with you, all of that. Please share what you got going on right now.
Well, actually, as I said earlier, I am the creator of this ministry called Wise Women Slay, and it's devoted to women that are 50 and older, really just learning to be okay with aging. And I have a private group page. You can just put Wise Women Slay, and this is on Facebook, to where you can be a part of that. And we just do more encouraging. We have a lot of encouraging messages on a daily basis, but we also have a book club. And when I started this ministry, it was designed on four tenets. One of them is being a forever learner, health and wellness. Um, and I always forget a couple of them: health and wellness, forever learner, intentional living, and there's one more, and maybe I'll remember, but I can't remember right now. But it's really just to celebrate, not, I won't even say celebrate, yes, celebrate, but I would say enjoy your going forward years. Don't ever be afraid to live your life to the fullest, because 66, this is the most exciting time of my life. And I just and when you think about it, as you get older, you don't have the same cares, because generally you're not raising your children, you know. They're on their own path, and even if you have to help raise your grandchildren, it's still a difference. And I know you don't have grandchildren now, but you're gonna have fun, Joe, when you got them grandkids. Because it's a whole different ball game. But um, just celebrating yourself at the age that you're at, and especially, like I said, people who are 50 and older, we're in those exciting times now, and that's one thing that is I celebrate, and I want others to celebrate. And then the last thing, Wise Women Slay. There's a group of women that we have been meeting. We have a book club, if you will. And out of that, the Lord started talking to me about writing a book. And so 9 women that came out of the book club on Tuesday nights, and we still do that. We're not doing it right now, but we have a book club on Tuesday nights. 9 of the women, uh, when I told them, I feel like the Lord is telling us to write a book, they came into agreement with it. And so we're in the final stages of writing this book. It should be out. What is this? October? Yeah, by November, mid-November. It's called Intentional Living, and we're all sharing our stories over our lifetime, whether it's in health and wellness, whether it's relationships, whether it's just aging gracefully, not being afraid to age. And, I think I might have said this or not, but even as a lot of times there's stigmas behind aging, you know you got sags here and there, you gotta have the seven days of the week pills to take. I mean, those things are real. And I mean, for a long time I hated aarp, because after age 50, 55, you start getting, but now I embrace it, because when I
Mhm.
look and when I read the articles, and aarp has done an excellent job of staying current. But the whole thing is, you don't have to, as I tell the ladies sitting up back waiting on Jesus to come. Come on, Jesus, come and get me out of here. Get me out of this hellhole. No, enjoy life. You
Mhm.
know, embrace. Yeah, I got sag now. How, like when I first started graying my hair, I mean, allowing the gray to come in. I was coloring every week, but then I said, you know what? Let me just get a little cute little style, put some makeup on, and I started doing that. And so I encourage women, especially women, because you guys, you all have it easy. You always want to, you're wise, you look good with that gray, that beard. With the women, it's like we're supposed to stay, with black hair. I mean, darker hair. Don't let the gray come out. But I really encourage women to embrace aging. And so this book talks about all phases of an older person's life and how they've navigated from childhood. There's some stories in there you're gonna hear, and once it comes out, I'll certainly share it with you. And if you don't mind sharing it with others, but they're gonna talk about the challenges that they did have and still have, and so they're still working through it, even at the later years.
Mhm.
Until you make a decision, I'm gonna stop doing what I'm doing, the thing will still be there. But thank goodness these ladies made a decision. Yes, we're gonna do this, and so we're excited. Intentional living, 9 women, and like I said, once we get it, we're in those final stages. We got to wrap up a few things, but by the 1st of November, it should be out. It's going to be on Amazon. I'm sure we'll have other platforms, but certainly it's going to start there at Amazon and go from there. So we're excited. Believing God's going to just make that book go where it needs to go. Well, we know it will. We're believing for bestseller. I mean, we got a goal in mind. Who knows? And we're good with it. However, God sees fit. So yeah, that's what we're looking to do, and we're excited about it, and just continuing to age well until we leave the planet, not being afraid to die. I could say a lot, but I'm just gonna say this one more thing. I'm gonna stop talking.
No, you're good.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to die. When you stop being afraid to die, you live, because you don't if you're so afraid that I'm getting ready to turn 70, I'm going to die, mama died at such and such. Well, that doesn't mean you will. You need to change your eating habits. That's usually what causes death, is because you got the wrong foods going into your mouth. But when you come to a place where you're not afraid to die, then the sky's the limit. As I told us,
Mm.
Lord, I want to live till I think I'll be ready about 90, 95. That'll be a good time. And so I plan for that. You plan for your life as you get older. So that's all.
Love it, love it, love it, and I'm super excited for everything that you're a part of with the upcoming book, with the ministry that you got going on. Those are beautiful things. So any ladies that are checking out the podcast, please do connect with Nina. Be a part of that if you think that this will be something that is in alignment with where you are in that phase of life. Get your blessing, because this is a woman who, this is what she's about, and she surrounded herself with other likewise women who are trying to do the same thing. So again, you'll continue to be in my prayers on that, and most certainly when it does officially come out, definitely feel free to share it with me. I'll be more than happy to put it out there on my respective pages and let people know about it, because that's a great work and it's needed. And even like I said, kind of the same mindset I had when I did my own book, Blessings in the Streets. And anytime, if with your book club or anything like that, or anybody that's interested in finding out more about that, you can visit blessingsinthestreets.com to purchase your copy of that as well. So doing some great things, Nina, and it has been a pleasure having you on the podcast today, sharing your story, sharing your journey. As I said earlier, and I'll say it again, I have thoroughly been blessed, and I know others will be blessed as well in hearing your journey. And for those of you who are watching, if you've enjoyed the content, you've enjoyed what we're doing here at the Blessings in the Street podcast, please share, please subscribe, please like, please comment, tell other people about it, because platforms like this, as Nina and I share with you at the very top of the show, we have to extend beyond those four walls of the church to reach people, to connect with people. But we're trying to do it in a very unique and creative way, very relatable, very down to earth, meeting people where they are, sharing our personal journeys, laying it all out on the table, being transparent, reminding you that you're not the only one going through your storms, and you don't have to go through those challenges alone. You don't have to do it by yourself. We have a God who loves us unconditionally. He desires to be in relationship with us, and all he wants is for you to be a part of that. He's not going to force it, but he definitely is welcoming to have that relationship with you, so that and that you can experience his love, his grace, his mercy, and everything else that he has to offer you. I promise you, not something I'm telling you, something that I heard, something that Nina and I both know. It'll be the best decision that you'll ever make in your life if you have not already done so. And even for those of you who have, keep fighting through it. Yes, the warfare is going to increase, the attacks are going to come, but you got somebody in your corner who's undefeated when it comes to that. So as long as you have him by your side, as long as you're coming to him in prayer and building that relationship and staying in his word, you're going to be covered, and you're going to get through any storm, any challenge that comes your way. So with that said, here at the Blessings in the Street podcast, always remember, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, God bless. Take care of yourselves. Keep fighting that good fight. Keep leaning into God and having that relationship with him, knowing and trusting and believing in him to work it out in all facets and all areas of your life. And I promise you, again, best decision that you will ever make. He loves us unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for us. So with that said, take care of yourselves. God bless, and I'll see you next time.
Good night.